The crystalline dome of Valoria stretched above like a frozen ocean wave, capturing starlight from 3 suns and scattering it into rainbow patterns across the gathered crowd. Day 1 stood near the back of the Grand Botanical Summit, feeling very small and very human among the assembled representatives of 47 galactic civilizations. His worn work boots seemed terribly out of place against the polished crystal floor. Around him, aliens of every imaginable shape discussed matters in clicking, whistling, and humming languages. Some floated in anti-gravity bubbles. Others towered on multiple legs. A few existed as clouds of luminous gas contained in transparent vessels. All of them wore elaborate garments that seemed to shift and glow with their own inner light. Day 1 looked down at his simple cotton shirt and canvas pants, dirt still visible under his fingernails despite his best scrubbing efforts that morning. "You should not have come dressed like that," Ambassador Kyung-soo hissed at his elbow. The ambassador's formal suit gleamed with embedded technology, and his face was tight with embarrassment. "You look like a farmer, not a scientist." "I am a farmer," Day 1 replied quietly. "Also a scientist. The two are not so different." Before Kyung-soo could respond, a deep gonging sound echoed through the chamber. The conversation stopped. Every being turned toward the central platform where High Counselor Thexra stood. The Valorian leader's 8 scaled limbs caught the light like polished bronze. Her vertical pupils swept across the assembly with the confidence of one who had ruled for 3 centuries. Distinguished guests from across the galaxy. Thexra's voice resonated through translation devices, reaching every ear and sensory organ in the room. "We have summoned you here for a challenge that has defeated our greatest minds. 300 years ago, our most sacred treasure died. The eternal starbloom, the tree that had lived for 10,000 years, withered despite our every effort to save it." A holographic image materialized above the platform. Day 1 leaned forward, his trained eye taking in every detail. The tree had been massive, its trunk wider than a house, its branches spreading like rivers of silver reaching toward the sky. But the image showed it in death, gray and brittle, surrounded by sophisticated medical equipment and desperate alien scientists. "We have preserved the starbloom in hope," Thexra continued. "Hope that one day, science would advance enough to restore it. That day has come. We invite the greatest minds of the galaxy to attempt what we could not. Revive the eternal starbloom, and your civilization will earn the eternal gratitude of Valoria, along with access to our most advanced technologies." Immediately, hands and tentacles and appendages shot into the air. A tall being made of living crystal stepped forward first, projecting schematics of a quantum gene splicer that could rebuild DNA strand by strand. Next came a floating brain in a jar, proposing a temporal reversal chamber to restore the tree to its state 400 years ago. One after another, alien scientists presented solutions involving nanotechnology, dimensional folding, artificial consciousness transfer, and methods Day 1 could barely understand. He listened carefully to each proposal. They were impressive, showing mastery of sciences Earth was only beginning to explore. But something bothered him. None of them asked the simple questions. None of them wondered why the tree had died in the first place. Dr. Hana, standing beside him, noticed his frown. "What are you thinking?" she whispered. She had been his colleague for 5 years, and knew that look. "They are trying to force life into a dead thing," Day 1 said. "But they do not ask what killed it. Maybe that does not matter. If they can revive it with technology, everything matters," Day 1 said. He raised his hand. The movement was small, almost lost among the waving alien appendages. But Thexra's sharp eyes caught it. A human? Participating in this discussion? A ripple of curiosity spread through the chamber. "The human wishes to speak?" Thexra's tone carried amusement. "Please, enlighten us." Day 1 felt every eye in the massive dome turn toward him. Ambassador Kyung-soo's face went pale. But Day 1 had spent 40 years working with plants, and he knew that good science started with good questions. "What was the soil composition when the tree lived?" he asked. Silence. Then scattered clicking sounds, the Valorian equivalent of confused laughter. The soil? Thexra repeated. Yes. And the rainfall patterns. The temperature variations. What other plants grew nearby? Were there animals? Insects? What was the light like during different seasons? The laughter grew louder. A blob-like alien near the front actually split in two from the force of its mirth. The primitive human wants to know about dirt and water. It gurgled through its translator. Perhaps he wishes to sing to the dead wood. Another called out. Or dance around it. Under the moonlight. Even some of the more reserved species allowed themselves amused expressions. Thexra raised one limb for silence. Though her own mouthparts quirked in what might have been a smile. Your concern for such basic elements is charming. But we have moved beyond such crude considerations. Our technology controls environment perfectly. We maintain the starbloom's habitat with precision down to the molecular level. Then why did it die? Day One asked simply. The question hung in the air like a challenge. Thexra's smile faded. That is what we are here to discover. Through advanced science, not through examining dirt. May I see the tree? Day One asked. May I examine the place where it grew? The request was so absurd that Thexra actually paused. Around the chamber, aliens whispered and clicked and hummed to each other. A human, asking to examine what the galaxy's best scientists had studied for 3 centuries? What could he possibly see that they had missed? But Thexra was not leader of the Valorian Empire without reason. She understood the value of theater, of demonstration. Letting this simple human fail publicly would serve 2 purposes. It would prove the superiority of advanced technology over primitive methods, and it would provide entertainment while the real scientists prepared their solutions. Very well, Thexra said, her voice carrying across the chamber. The human gardener may examine our sacred starbloom. We will observe with great interest. The emphasis on the word gardener drew fresh laughter. Ambassador Kyung-soo grabbed Day One's arm the moment the session ended. What are you doing? He demanded. You are making Earth look foolish. These are the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, and you are asking about dirt and rain like a child. I am asking the questions that need answers, Day One said calmly. You will fail, Kyung-soo said. And when you do, it will be humanity that looks primitive and stupid. Our reputation, our trading rights, our place in the galactic community, all of it depends on being taken seriously. Then perhaps we should be serious about understanding nature. Day One replied. Not just controlling it. Day One. Day One. Day One. Day One. Day One. Hana touched his shoulder. Are you certain about this? They are right about one thing. Every civilization out there is watching. If you cannot deliver, I can only try, Day One said. But I have brought dead gardens back to life before. I have healed soil that scientists said was ruined forever. Maybe their technology is not the problem. Maybe their thinking is. That night, as Day One prepared for sleep in his modest quarters, he looked out at the Valorian sky. Somewhere in this beautiful alien city, a dead tree waited. A tree that had lived for 10,000 years before the aliens' perfect technology somehow killed it. Tomorrow, he would see it with his own eyes. Tomorrow, he would put his hands in the soil and remember what these advanced beings seemed to have forgotten. Life was not a problem to be solved with machines. Life was a relationship to be understood. The sacred grove sat inside a massive transparent dome at the heart of Valoria's oldest district. Day One stood before its entrance, a simple bag of tools slung over his shoulder. The bag contained a trowel, a few glass jars, a notebook, and a pencil. No quantum scanners, no molecular analyzers, just the same tools he had used in gardens back on Earth. This is everything you brought? Velmax asked, his scaled head tilting in obvious disbelief. The Valorian botanist had been assigned to supervise Day One's examination. The word supervise clearly meant Ensure the human does not damage anything important. We have equipment that can analyze a single atom. You bring a digging stick? A trowel? Day 1 corrected gently. And yes, this is everything I need. Velmax made a sound like rocks grinding together, the Valorian version of a disgusted sigh. He pressed his palm against a security panel, and the dome's entrance spiraled open. Try not to contaminate the sacred site with your primitive methods. Inside, the air felt wrong immediately. Day 1 paused, breathing slowly. The temperature was perfect. Exactly 22 degrees. The humidity was precise, measured, and controlled. Soft light bathed everything in a gentle glow, spectrum balanced and constant. It was the most controlled environment Day 1 had ever encountered. It was also completely dead. The eternal star bloom rose before him like a monument to failure. Even withered, it was magnificent. The trunk stretched 30 meters high. Its bark, once silver, now faded to ash gray. Branches that had once held millions of leaves now reached toward the dome like skeletal fingers. Around it, the ground was covered in a substance that looked like soil but felt like powder when Day 1 knelt and touched it. The substrate is maintained at optimal composition, Velmax said proudly, watching Day 1 sift the powder through his fingers. Perfectly balanced minerals. Ideal pH. Exact moisture content. It is dead, Day 1 said quietly. What? The soil. It is dead. There is no life in it. Day 1 stood, brushing the powder from his hands. May I take samples? You can see everything you need with our sensors. May I take samples? Day 1 repeated patiently. Velmax gestured dismissively. If you must play in the dirt like a child, proceed. For the next 2 hours, Day 1 worked methodically. He collected soil from different depths and distances from the tree. He examined the bark, gently pressing his fingernails against it to test its consistency. He walked the entire grove, noting every detail. Velmax followed, alternating between boredom and irritation. Hana arrived with Jiwoo, a young intern who had volunteered to help. Jiwoo's eyes went wide at the sight of the massive dead tree. It is beautiful even now, she whispered. It wants to live, Day 1 said, running his hand along the trunk. I can feel it. The wood is not completely dead inside, but it has nothing to live for, nothing to connect to. That is poetic nonsense, Velmax snapped. Plants do not want anything. They respond to stimuli according to biological programming. If you believed that, Day 1 replied, the tree would still be alive. Before Velmax could respond, an elderly alien shuffled into the grove. This being moved slowly, supported by a hovering platform, their form hidden beneath layers of flowing robes. Only 2 large, golden eyes were visible. Elder Chicks, Velmax said, his tone immediately becoming respectful. I did not know you were coming. I heard a human was examining our star bloom. The elder's voice was like wind through leaves, translated into words. I wish to see this for myself. I am the keeper of histories. I remember when the tree lived. I wished to do. I wished to do. Day 1 approached and bowed slightly. Elder, I would be honored to learn what you remember. For the first time since entering the grove, Velmax looked uncertain. Elder Kieks was respected throughout Valoria, one of the few beings alive who had seen the star bloom in its glory. The human asks good questions, Kieks said, those golden eyes studying Day 1. Better than our scientists asked 300 years ago. Our scientists asked every relevant question, Velmax protested. No, Chick said softly. They asked, how to save the tree. This human asks, why the tree died. These are different questions. Over the next hours, Elder Keeks shared memories. The star bloom had not grown in isolation. It had been the center of a thriving forest, surrounded by hundreds of other plant species. Small creatures had lived in its branches. The soil had been rich and dark, full of insects and worms. The seasons had changed, bringing rain and drought, heat and cold. When we built this dome to protect the tree, Cheeks explained, we thought we were saving it. We removed the other plants because they competed for resources. We eliminated the insects because they might damage the bark. We controlled the temperature because extremes might cause stress. We gave it everything we thought it needed. Dom, and took away everything it actually needed, Day One said quietly. Velmax's scales bristled. We gave it perfection. Optimal conditions. You gave it isolation, Day One countered, his voice still gentle but firm. Elder Cheeks, may I see the historical records? Pictures, descriptions, anything from when the tree lived? Keix's eyes brightened. Yes. Yes, I will bring you everything. Over the following days, Day One studied the records with Hana, translating the ancient texts. Ji Wu helped organize the information, while Velmax watched with increasing frustration. The picture that emerged was clear. The star bloom had never been a single organism. It had been part of a complex web of relationships. Fungi in the soil had connected to its roots, helping it absorb nutrients. Certain insects had pollinated its flowers. Birds and small mammals had spread its seeds. Other plants had provided shade for its young shoots and shelter for its allies. Look at this, Hana said, pointing to an ancient diagram. The tree had a symbiotic relationship with a fungus that has been extinct for 500 years. Not extinct, Day One said, studying his notes. Just not found on Valoria anymore. I saw similar species in the Galactic Botanical Database. We can get samples. You cannot seriously be suggesting, Velmax interrupted, that our advanced environmental controls are inferior to chaos and contamination? Day One looked up at the Valorian botanist. Not chaos, complexity. Your controls are perfect for keeping a specimen alive in a museum. But this tree did not evolve to live in a museum. It evolved to live in a forest, surrounded by partners and competitors, challenges and support. That is insane, Velmax said flatly. Stress kills organisms. We eliminated stress. Some stress is essential. Day One replied. A tree that never experiences wind develops weak wood. Roots that never search for water stay shallow. Life does not want comfort. Life wants purpose, challenge, partnership. Jiwoo looked between them, fascinated. Day One stood, looking up at the dead star bloom. We bring back the forest. Not a tree. A living system. Impossible, Velmax said. The council will never approve contaminating the sacred grove with insects and fungi and random plants. Then I will ask them, Day One said. The council meeting was brief. Day One presented his findings simply. The tree had died because the Valorians had isolated it from its ecosystem. To revive it, they needed to recreate that ecosystem, introduce fungi, bacteria, insects, other plants, return seasonal variations, allow the controlled chaos of life. The alien scientists in attendance reacted exactly as expected. Laughter, mockery, dismissal. The human suggests we make our sacred grove dirty, one shouted. Primitive thinking, but Thexra silenced them with a raised limb. We asked for solutions. The human offers one. It may be wrong, but so have all our advanced methods been wrong for 3 centuries. She looked at Day One. How long would this take? Months, Day One admitted. Maybe longer. Building an ecosystem cannot be rushed. You have 2 months, Thexra declared. If we see no progress, the project ends. Do you accept? Day One bowed. I accept. Thank you for the opportunity. As he left the chamber, Velmax caught up to him. You will fail, the Valorian said. And I will document every moment of that failure. Then you will learn something valuable. Day One replied. Even from failure, gardens teach us wisdom. The transformation of the sacred grove began at dawn on the first day of Day One's 2-month deadline. He arrived with Hana, Jiwoo, and another human volunteer named Tae Min, a soil engineer who specialized in restoring damaged Earth. They stood before the pristine, dead space and prepared to make it messy. "We start with the foundation," Daewon said, kneeling to examine the powdery substrate once more. "Tae Min, what do we need?" Tae Min had spent the previous week analyzing samples. "Life. This powder has minerals but no biology. We need bacteria, fungi, organic matter. We need to wake up the soil itself." Velmax watched from the entrance, his scaled face showing deep skepticism. "You are going to contaminate the sacred grove with bacteria? We are going to feed it," Daewon corrected. "Soil without microbes is not soil. It is dust. Under the wear of Win the Cruder. Day, was I and summon. Under the wear of Win the Cruder. Day, one, Cruder. Under the wear. The first shipments arrived that afternoon. Containers of compost made from decomposing plant matter. Cultures of beneficial bacteria isolated from similar environments on other worlds. Fungi spores carefully selected to match the species that had once partnered with the star bloom. To the Valorian observers, it looked like the humans were deliberately making the pristine grove filthy. News of the project spread quickly across the galactic networks. Video feeds showed humans dumping what looked like dirt and rotting plants around a sacred alien treasure. The commentary was predictable and harsh. "The human gardener plays in filth while real scientists watch in horror," one popular commentator announced. Their show featured split-screen footage of Daewon spreading compost with his bare hands next to clips of advanced aliens presenting elegant technological solutions. Ambassador Kyung-soo called Hana directly. "Earth's reputation is being destroyed," he said, his voice tight with stress. "Every civilization in the galaxy is watching humans roll in dirt. The Council is receiving formal complaints. They want me recalled." "In locking, give Daewon time," Hana urged. "Time for what? To embarrass us further?" Kyung-soo's image flickered with frustration. "I have been informed that if this project fails, Earth's application for advanced trading status will be rejected for at least 50 years. 50 years, Hana, because one farmer thought he knew better than the entire galactic scientific community." Hana looked across the grove to where Daewon was carefully measuring pH levels in different soil sections, his expression peaceful and focused. "He knows what he is doing." 2. "Then why is nothing happening?" Kyung-soo demanded, before ending the call. It was a fair question. 3 weeks had passed, and the star bloom looked exactly as dead as before. The soil was darker now, rich and crumbly instead of powder. But the tree itself showed no change. Alien observers pointed this out constantly. "The human has made expensive dirt," Velmax reported to the Council. "Nothing more. The tree remains dead." But Daewon continued working 16-hour days, seemingly unconcerned with the criticism. He adjusted the dome's environmental controls, introducing temperature variations that mimicked seasons. Morning would be cool, afternoon warm, evening cooler again. He programmed weather patterns including gentle rain 3 times a week. "You are stressing the system," Velmax protested. "Variations cause inefficiency. Variations cause life," Daewon replied, watching the first artificial rain fall on the enriched soil. "A tree that experiences only perfect conditions becomes weak. One that adapts to change becomes strong." Next came the introduction of other organisms. Tiny insects imported from 6 different worlds, each filling a specific role. Some aerated the soil, others pollinated flowers. Though there were no flowers yet, a few species broke down dead organic matter. The Valorian observers watched with disgust as bugs crawled across their sacred grove. "This is desecration," one council member declared during a surprise inspection. "The human has turned our holiest site into a pest farm." Daewon looked up from where he was gently placing a culture of earthworms into the soil. "These organisms are not pests. They are partners. The tree cannot live alone. It never did. The tree lived for 10,000 years. The council member snapped. Yes, Day One agreed. Surrounded by millions of these pests. When you removed them, you removed the tree's support system. I am putting it back. By week 5, Day One began introducing other plants. Not randomly, but carefully selected species that historical records showed had grown near the star bloom. Small ferns that would shade the soil and retain moisture. Flowering plants that would attract more insects. Nitrogen-fixing species that would enrich the earth. The grove no longer looked sterile and controlled. It looked wild. It looked messy. To the alien observers, it looked completely wrong. Progress report. Thexra demanded during week 6. She stood before the council with Day One, who was tired and dirty but calm. The deadline is approaching. What results can you show? Day One projected images of the soil structure. The microbial life has increased by 6,000%. The substrate now supports complex fungal networks. Nutrient cycling has been established. The ecosystem is functioning. But the tree is still dead, Thexra said flatly. The tree will respond when the environment is ready. Day One replied. You cannot force life on a schedule. Murmurs of dissatisfaction rippled through the council. We gave you advanced resources, human cooperation, and time, another council member said. All you have produced is an expensive garden, while the star bloom remains exactly as it was. That night, Ji Woo found Day One sitting alone in the grove, his back against the star bloom's massive trunk. Are you worried? She asked. No, Day One said honestly. I can feel it. The soil is alive now. The systems are connecting. It just needs more time. We have 2 weeks left. I know. What if nothing happens? Day One smiled slightly. Then I will have failed. But the soil will still be alive. The next person who tries will have better foundation to build on. Failure is not wasted, if it teaches. Ji Woo sat beside him. You really believe the tree will respond? I believe in life. Day One said, running his hand over the rough bark. Life wants to continue. It wants to thrive. We just have to give it the chance. On day 27 of the deadline, Taemin made a discovery. His regular analysis of the soil composition showed something new. The fungal networks were not just spreading randomly. They were growing in a specific pattern, reaching toward the star bloom's roots. Look at this. Taemin called Day One over to his portable analyzer. The mycorrhizal fungi. They are finding the root system. Day One knelt, pressing his hands into the soil near the trunk. He stayed still for a long moment, feeling. They are talking, he said softly. What? The fungi and the tree. Chemical signals. The roots are responding. Day One stood, soil falling from his fingers. It is working. The tree knows it is not alone anymore. But we cannot see any change, Taemin said. Not yet. Root response comes first. Then if we are lucky, the rest. On day 29, with 1 day remaining before the deadline, Day One sent a message to the council. 3 words. You should come. Velmax arrived first, expecting to document final failure. But when he entered the grove, he stopped. His scaled body went completely still. What did you do? He whispered. Daywin stood near the base of the star bloom, his face showing quiet satisfaction. He pointed upward. Look. And, on one of the lowest branches, barely visible against the gray bark, was a spot of color. Small. No larger than a coin, but unmistakably present. Green. The first green the star bloom had shown in 300 years. A single bud, tiny and fragile, but alive. The tree was waking up. The message spread through Valoria's communication networks like lightning across a night sky. By the time High Counselor Thexra arrived at the sacred grove, representatives from all 47 galactic civilizations were already gathering. The transparent dome, usually quiet and solemn, buzzed with excited conversations in a dozen different languages. Velmax stood at the entrance, his expression no longer showing skepticism but something closer to shock. "I documented everything," he said to no one in particular. "I watched every day." "Not suddenly," Day One said quietly, approaching from inside the grove. His clothes were dirty, his hands stained with soil, but his eyes held a calm satisfaction. "Slowly. Underground, where you could not see it with your instruments." Thexra entered the grove and stopped. Her 8 limbs locked in place as her eyes took in the transformation. The space that had been pristine and dead 2 months ago now thrived with life. The soil was dark and rich. Plants of varying heights created layers of green, and small insects moved purposefully through the undergrowth. But all of that paled compared to the starbloom itself. The single green bud Velmax had discovered the previous day was no longer alone. Across the massive tree's branches, dozens of similar buds had appeared overnight, and as the assembled crowd watched in silence, one of them began to open, unfurling a leaf that gleamed like polished silver in the dome's light. "How?" Thexra asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Elder Keeks shuffled forward on their hovering platform, golden eyes bright with tears. "It is more beautiful than I remembered," the old historian said. "When I was young, I would sit beneath these branches. I never thought to see them live again." Day One gestured for the council to follow him deeper into the grove. "Let me show you what happened. Not magic, not mystery, just partnership." He knelt beside the starbloom's trunk and carefully brushed aside the top layer of soil. Beneath, visible through a transparent viewing panel he had installed, was a cross-section of the root system. Fine white threads wove through the roots like delicate lace, connecting them to an underground network that spread throughout the grove. "Mycorrhizal fungi," Day One explained as alien scientists crowded around for a better look. "They connect to the tree's roots and extend its reach. The tree gives them sugars from photosynthesis. The fungi give the tree access to water and nutrients from far beyond where its roots can reach alone." A crystalline scientist projected scanning data. "Remarkable. The fungal network extends through 70% of the grove's soil volume. The tree's effective root system has increased by orders of magnitude. More than that," Hannah added, pulling up her research on a portable display. "The fungi are also connecting the starbloom to the other plants. They are sharing resources. When we water one section, the fungi distribute moisture throughout the network. When one plant produces excess nutrients, others benefit. It is cooperation at the cellular level." Velmax moved closer, his earlier hostility replaced by scientific curiosity. "But the fungi alone cannot account for this. 300 years of our best technology could not produce a single bud, and now dozens appear in a single night? Because the fungi are only part of the ecosystem," Day One said. He pointed to the insects moving through the soil. "These organisms aerate the earth, allowing oxygen to reach the roots. These break down organic matter, releasing nutrients. These bacteria fix nitrogen from the air into a form the tree can use. Everything is connected. Everyone has a role." Taemin pulled up his soil analysis data. "Look at the nutrient composition now compared to 2 months ago. The living soil is producing everything the tree needs. Our initial compost was just the starter. The system is now self-sustaining and generating its own fertility." "You are saying," another council member spoke up, "that our mistake was trying to feed the tree directly? We should have been feeding the soil?" "Yes," Day One said simply. "You tried to save a tree. I restored an ecosystem. The tree is saving itself." Gray knew. Over the next week, the transformation accelerated. More buds appeared daily. Leaves unfurled in cascading waves of silver green across branches that had been gray and dead. The tree's bark began to show subtle color changes, shifting from ash to a healthier bronze silver. And then, on the 8th day, after the first bud appeared, something extraordinary happened. Ji Woo noticed it first during an early morning observation. She was recording data when she saw a faint glow emanating from one of the newer leaves. Day 1. "Ah," she called. "Come, look at this." The leaf pulsed with soft bioluminescence, like a heartbeat made of light. As they watched, the glow spread to neighboring leaves, then to the next branch, then further. Within an hour, the entire star bloom shimmered with gentle internal light, creating patterns that flowed through the branches like rivers of stars. Elder Cheeks wept openly. "Just as I remembered. Just as it was. The star bloom only shows its light when it is truly healthy and happy. We thought we would never see this again." News of the bioluminescence brought even more observers. Scientists who had mocked Day 1's methods now requested permission to study the grove. The transparent dome became a pilgrimage site, as Valorians who had never seen the living star bloom came to witness the miracle. Ambassador Kyung-soo arrived with a delegation of human officials, his earlier stress replaced by barely contained pride. "The Galactic Council has reversed their position on Earth's trading status," he informed Hana privately. "They have also requested that Day 1 address the full assembly. Every civilization wants to understand his methods, but Day 1 was too busy to think about speeches. He had noticed something in his daily examinations of the tree, something that both excited and concerned him. He asked for a private meeting with Thexra and Elder Kieks. In a small chamber adjacent to the grove, Day 1 showed them his findings. "The tree is producing flower buds," he said, pointing to swellings on several branches that looked different from the leaf buds. Thexra leaned closer. "Flowers? The star bloom flowers?" "According to the historical records, yes," Hana confirmed. "But there have been no documented flowerings in over 1,000 years. The tree was too old, too stable. It had no reason to reproduce." 2-3. "Until now," Day 1 said, "the ecosystem is so healthy, so vibrant, that the tree senses opportunity. It thinks conditions are right to create the next generation." Elder Cheek's golden eyes widened. "Seeds? The star bloom could produce seeds? Possibly, if the flowers are successfully pollinated." Day 1 showed them video footage of the insects he had introduced. "These species are similar to the ones that existed when the tree last flowered. They should be able to do the job. This is beyond anything we hoped for," Thexra said softly. "Not just to revive the tree, but to give it a future." That evening, Velmax approached Day 1 in the grove. The Valorian botanist had been quiet for days, observing and taking notes. "I owe you an apology," Velmax said, the words clearly difficult. "I called your methods primitive. I laughed at your simple tools and basic questions. I was wrong. Worse than wrong. I was arrogant." Day 1 looked up from where he was adjusting a moisture sensor. "You were trained in a different tradition. Technology is not wrong. It is just not the only answer. We thought control was the same as understanding," Velmax said. "We believed that if we could manipulate every variable, we could force nature to obey us. You showed us that nature does not need to obey. It needs to be partnered with." "Would you like to learn?" Day 1 asked. "The partnership approach?" Velmax's scales rippled with what might have been embarrassment or hope. "I would be honored." Above them, the star bloom glowed softly in the dimming light, its leaves rustling in the artificial breeze. Somewhere among those branches, flower buds continued to develop, promising a future that had seemed impossible just months before. The dead tree was not just alive. It was preparing to create life. And in the soil beneath, the invisible network of fungi and bacteria and insects continued their ancient work, proving that the strongest foundations are the ones built on cooperation rather than control. 6 months after the first green bud appeared on the star bloom, Day 1 stood in the sacred grove and marveled at what partnership could achieve. The tree was fully alive now, its silver-green canopy spreading wide, bioluminescent leaves creating shifting patterns of light throughout the day and night. But the true miracle hung from dozens of branches in the form of seed pods, each one containing the genetic future of a species that had nearly been lost forever. 43 viable seeds. Hana reported, carefully documenting each pod's development. The pollination was 92% successful. The insects did their job perfectly. Yiwu worked nearby, tending to a group of young star blooms that had been carefully germinated from the first harvested seeds. The saplings, each no taller than her knee, were already showing the characteristic silver bark of their parent. These will be ready for planting across Valoria within a year, she said. The species will survive. Velmax supervised the planting preparations with an intensity that would have surprised his former self. The Valorian botanist had become Day One's most dedicated student, learning to feel soil texture by hand, to observe insect behavior without instruments, to trust in the wisdom of natural systems. I am preparing sites in 12 different locations, he reported. Each will have a complete ecosystem ready before we transplant the young trees. No more isolation. No more sterile environments. Taman was helping establish those sites, teaching Valorian engineers how to build living soil from scratch. The hardest part is convincing them to be patient, he told Day One. They want to measure success in days. I keep explaining that healthy soil takes months to develop. They will learn, Day One said. As you did. As we all do, when we listen to what the Earth teaches. The teaching had already spread far beyond Valoria. Day One's address to the Galactic Botanical Council had been transmitted across the galaxy, reaching billions of beings on thousands of worlds. His message was simple but revolutionary to ears accustomed to technological solutions. Work with nature, not against it. Understand, before controlling. Partner, before commanding. Requests for assistance had flooded in from dozens of civilizations. Dead ecosystems on mining worlds, failing agricultural systems on colony planets. Gardens of rare species, withering, despite advanced care. Each request told the same story, sophisticated technology failing where ecological understanding might succeed. Hana had responded by establishing the Interspecies Botanical Institute, headquartered on Valoria, but with branches spreading to multiple worlds. We have 300 students in the first class, she told Day One proudly. Beings from 40 different species, all learning what you already know. How to read soil, how to observe insect behavior, how to understand the relationships that make ecosystems work. The Institute brought alien botanists to Earth, which had transformed humanity's reputation across the galaxy. What had once been dismissed as a primitive backwater was now recognized as a reservoir of ecological wisdom. Earth's farmers, gardeners, and naturalists found themselves teaching advanced alien scientists the basics of composting, companion planting, and seasonal cultivation. It is strange, Ambassador Kyung-soo admitted during a visit to the sacred grove. Earth has no quantum computers. Our fastest ships are centuries behind galactic standards. Our medicine is crude compared to regeneration chambers. But in this one area, we lead the galaxy. Because we never forgot, Day One said. We never had the technology to separate ourselves completely from nature. So, we had to keep learning how to live with it. Our limitation became our wisdom. High Counselor Thexra, who had once mocked the human gardener, now walked with him through the thriving grove. Her 8 limbs moved carefully to avoid stepping on the smaller plants that created the understory ecosystem. I must confess something, she said. When you first spoke at the summit, I permitted your examination as entertainment. I expected you to fail quickly and publicly, proving the superiority of our methods. I know, Day One said without judgment, yet you never showed anger. Even when we laughed at you, even when the galaxy ridiculed your approach, you remained calm and focused on your work. Anger would not have helped the tree, Day One replied simply. The star bloom did not care about pride or reputation. It only wanted what all living things want: connection, purpose, and the chance to thrive. Thexra was quiet for a moment. We thought controlling nature proved our advancement. You showed us that understanding nature proves true wisdom. This is a difficult lesson for a species that has spent 10,000 years perfecting control. Control has its place, Day One acknowledged. Your technology does remarkable things. But technology should serve nature, not replace it. The best solutions combine both: your environmental controls, my ecological knowledge, your precision, my patience. Partnership works at every level. The lesson was being learned across the galaxy. On the mining world of Kethys 7, Valorian engineers were working with human ecologists to restore landscapes devastated by centuries of extraction. On the agricultural planet of Harvest's Promise, alien farmers were integrating traditional Earth techniques with advanced genetics to create resilient food systems. On dozens of worlds, species that had relied entirely on technology were rediscovering the value of getting their hands dirty. Elder Cheeks had become the Institute's senior advisor, sharing historical knowledge that contextualized the lessons. Our ancestors knew these truths, the old historian told classes, but we forgot. Success made us arrogant. Technology made us lazy. We stopped asking why and only asked how. This human reminded us that wisdom is not just accumulated knowledge, it is the humility to keep learning. One afternoon, as Day One was preparing to return to Earth for a brief visit, a group of young alien students approached him in the grove. They represented 6 different species, and each held a small pot containing a plant they had grown from seed. "Teacher," one said in halting but earnest galactic standard, "we wanted to show you what we learned. We grew these without technology. Just soil, water, sunlight, and patience." Day One examined each plant carefully, asking questions about their growing process. When he had looked at them all, he smiled. "These are healthy plants. Strong roots, good color. You listened to what they needed. That is excellent work. But teacher," another student asked, "how do we know if we are truly understanding? The plants cannot speak. How do we know if we are hearing them correctly?" "The plants do speak," Day One said. "Not with words, but with growth, with color, with the way they respond to care. If you pay attention, if you observe carefully, and without rushing, they will tell you everything you need to know. And if you make a mistake, they will teach you that too." The student looked thoughtful. "On my world, we have a saying, the wise being masters all around them. But you teach that wisdom is partnership, not mastery." "Perhaps," Day One suggested gently, "true mastery is knowing when not to master." The Starbloom did not need to be conquered. It needed to be understood and supported. There is great strength in that kind of humility. As the students left to tend their plants, Jiwoo approached. "You are really going back to Earth, even with all these requests for your help across the galaxy?" "I am a gardener," Day One said, looking up at the Starbloom's glowing canopy. "My place is in gardens. Here, on Valoria, in other worlds when needed, but also at home. I have a small plot of land in Seoul where neighborhood children come to learn about growing food. They need me too. One Compton growing Tong. But the galaxy needs you," Jiwoo protested. "The galaxy needs the knowledge, not me specifically," Day One corrected. "You are learning. Velmax is learning. Hundreds of students are learning. They will carry this wisdom further than I ever could alone. That is how real change happens. Not one person solving every problem, but many people learning to solve problems together. Censor, we have the Telger and Prospixest. Too. Hana joined them, having overheard. "We received another request today. A civilization that has not made contact with the galactic community in 5,000 years. They heard about the Starbloom and are asking if someone can help with their dying world forests." "What did you tell them?" Day One asked. "That we would send a team. Velmax has volunteered to lead it, with 2 human ecologists and 5 institute graduates. They leave next month." Day 1 nodded approvingly. Good. Velmax has learned well. He will serve them better than I could. Day. 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 That evening, Day 1's last in the sacred grove before his journey home, he sat with his back against the starbloom's trunk, just as he had done many times over the past months. The tree's bioluminescence pulsed gently, and he could feel the life thrumming through the bark. Below ground, the invisible network of fungi and bacteria and roots continued their endless work. Above, insects went about their business. Around, plants grew and supported each other in complex ways that instruments could measure but never fully capture. Thank you, he said quietly to the tree, to the grove, to the entire living system, for teaching me, even as I taught others, for showing the galaxy what partnership looks like, for proving that wisdom comes in many forms, and the oldest forms are often the best. A leaf drifted down, landing in his lap. He picked it up, feeling its texture, admiring its silver sheen in the dim light. In a few months, this tree would flower again. In a few years, its children would be growing across Valoria. In a few generations, the species would be secure, thriving not in isolation, but as part of the living communities they had evolved with. And somewhere, on some distant world, another gardener would put their hands in soil and remember that life is not a problem to be solved, but a relationship to be nurtured. That lesson, more than any technology, would ensure that the galaxy's gardens would thrive for ages to come.